One is the difference between a Nexus and a Nexus letter. They're not the same, and a Nexus letter is not always required. A Nexus is always required, regardless if we're talking about an initial service-connected claim or a secondary claim, right? If we're looking at Nexus through the lens of linking the condition to another condition or linking it to your time and service, that's the Nexus, right? So that has to happen. The Nexus letter that's usually what you see. What you're usually seeing as you're researching, looking around, are the words Nexus letter. A Nexus letter helps you to establish the Nexus. That's all that is. It's just another tool in your toolbox. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and just kind of ask you to go a little more, I don't know, round it down a little more, is the beauty of when you file a claim as a veteran who doesn't quite get it, right? You have enough information to be dangerous, and I'm going to use the same example because it happened to me too, right? Way back when I filed a claim, back pain, period.
Yeah.
Sucks, right? At my CMP exam, so tell me about your back pain. It's like an upside down T in my spine. That's where the pain goes. It shoots out into my hips. It's going down. Sometimes I have to brace my knees against the sink when I'm brushing my teeth because I feel like I'm going to fall over as I'm trying to spit in the sink. Just depends, right? It kind of fluctuates a little bit. And I'm explaining all of these things. And, you do your range of motion stuff. And then they started pushing on my back. And then they hit something and like my knees gave out. And next thing I know, I'm rated for not just my back, but radiculopathy down both sides that I didn't even know what that word was. So talk a little bit about how that type of a situation can happen for veterans. Now, obviously, I'm going to double down on what you also said. Do not rely on the VA to catch anything else that you may have, because there's a good chance they're going to miss it. But when they do catch it, good things do happen. And it is something that's, that the VA does get right sometimes. So I just wanted you to just kind of talk through it again, because I think that when we talked about it first, when you went through it, it might have been a little bit fast and people don't understand the gravity of that, because that just turned your 10% claim into a 30%.
Yeah. Easy.
Your back went from 10 to 30.
With
then
the
if you
bilateral
couple in,
too.
yeah. So just talk about that a little bit more, about how you feel the VA works with all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. So it's actually, there's two different lines of conversation there. One is exactly what we just talked about. Now, I'm not taking away from the CMP examiner in this instance, but the times that happens is when it's on the same DBQ and the CMP examiner simply goes through the DBQ. I know that sounds crazy because a lot of them don't, which is even crazier. But when I say good CMP examiner, they just go through the DBQ. And a part of, I think it's section 3 on the back, is for the lower spine. There's range of motions 3 tests, right? For repetitive flare-ups, all of these range of motions. Right below that is section 4. The sections might be off a little bit, but it says radiculopathy. And that test can come in many ways. An x-ray. For me, Jason, I sat up on a table, the doctor's bed, whatever it's called, that's got plastic on it.
Yeah.
That rubber hammer that has a triangle and hit both of my knees. And you hit my knee, nothing, right? And it's supposed to be like this. Right.
What's really funny is when they do that to your knee, instead of moving your knee, right, you go. Yeah, exactly. Get ready for that too.
That's, those tests are just simply going through the DBQ. And I'll say this, and we're still on the same line of conversation here, as a forcing function, because I know now how that works. If someone's submitting an increase for a back, or they're submitting a service connection claim for their back, always, always, always submit radiculopathy. It's so common, and it acts more of a forcing function. So even if the CMP examiner wasn't going to do it at first, all of a sudden, what the contract looks like. The VA
Right.
sends a request to the examiner.
Yeah.
The examiner fulfills that request. And so now that
Right.
request won't just say back DBQ. It'll
Right.
say back DBQ, radiculopathy DBQ. Always, always, always. There's a side note though. If you're already rated for lower back and now you're submitting radiculopathy, the reverse also comes in play because it's in the same DBQ. Your back will be reevaluated 100%. And so people talk about, well, when is my claim reevaluated? The answer is look at the DBQ. You know, if it's on the same DBQ, you can bet your life is going to be reevaluated. And so same thing. Instead of the VA just evaluating my back that's already service connected,
Right.
I'm going to submit for radiculopathy secondary. I'm also going to increase my back just as a forcing function. I would much rather the CMP examiner have the mindset of increase versus the mindset of, oh, I'm just going to do a back exam because the VA told me, right?
Right.
Those are just my thoughts. None of that is like doctrine set in stone, but this is just trial and error over the years. The second line of thought, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to double down on, I love that you said that putting the actual claimed item on your claim when you're filing your claim, not just back, putting back, left radiculopathy, right radiculopathy, lower left extremity, lower right extremity, whatever it is, right, is obviously the way to go. And that goes back to what you said the first time, which is be smart and go through it. And here's a great reason why, because they're not always going to pick it up, but sometimes they do if you forget. All right, back. What's that second line of thought you got?